Hey, Daily Dosers, happy Monday to you. If for any reason you missed church this weekend, and there may have been some of you because it's the summer and there's plans and you have excuses, but not good ones. Or maybe you go to another church and you talk to your church and you listen to what was going on, but you missed ours. Quick recap, because every dose this week is going to be on the book of Thessalonians. We did a big picture of it this weekend, and we talked about Paul. Oh, Buck, bring me the map. Yeah! We talked about Paul, Silas, Timothy, and Luke being in Troas. They got a call to go across the Aegean Sea. They got beat down in prison in Philippi. They make their way here to the capital of Macedonia, and it is called Thessalonica. It is the number one major port for the entire Roman Empire for all directions that come in through here. It is over 200,000 people in population in the first century. It is a ginormous city, and things go from bad to badder. And we talked about the persecution that happens there. We talked about what I believe the loss of life in the church that happened there, about Paul and Silas being ripped apart from them, being taken out in the middle of the night and being put down the coast to the next cities, about the bail and bond that were put up and forfeited because of that. And I do believe that's human life. And we saw this weekend tragedy of a church in Thessalonica. And we get this little letter. And you have to go back and remember all of this because it's a dark letter that is filled with persecution and suffering and death and what happens to Christians when they've died. And this 5-page book, Paul is writing to a church, and you can just read the verses and realize, man, these people just got ripped to shreds. In fact, Paul himself says, you've suffered the same as the churches in Judea, in Jerusalem. Were their own countrymen persecuted, killed them as they killed Christ and as they killed the prophets. People, this wasn't a fine or a parking ticket that was paid in Thessalonica. It was loss of life. It was massive persecution. And now we have a little book meant to give us hope and encouragement on dark days. And in chapter 1, when Paul says we got to Athens and we could take it no more, filled with what we looked at this weekend, he was filled with fear, weakness, and trembling. They sent Timothy back down the coast to Thessalonica. Bring word, are there any believers left? Is anyone still holding on to God? And Timothy goes back, and then he comes back, and he brings word to Paul and Silas and Luke. They're walking with God. And let me tell you about their lives in the midst of loss and persecution. And we have chapter 1, verse 2. I tried to hit it this weekend, but I had to fly by it because we were doing the whole book. Today we just hit these 2 verses. So Paul writes this letter back to them when he finds out about their faith. And he said, we always thank God for all of you, and we continually mention you in our prayers. We remember before our God and Father your, get right underline, circle 3 things. Number 1, work produced by faith, your labor prompted by love, and your endurance inspired by hope in our Lord Jesus Christ. And here's why I love the Daily Doses, because we can take just a daily dose. It's a one thought wonder. It's just a word for today. That's it. Said, if someone looked at your life and said, man, would they thank God for my Christianity? Would they thank God for my faith? The Apostle Paul says, let me give you 3 reasons why we know you have faith and we thank God for it. Number 1, you have a work produced by faith, which I then have to look at and go, God, is there anything I'm doing in my life through faith today? Is there anybody I'm reaching out to through faith today? I have work in my life produced by Chris and his amazing personality and giftedness. Ta-da! Where's a work produced by faith? See, Paul says, I'm not thanking God because you say you believe in God and believe in Jesus. He said, I see it working out in your life. And the second thing was a hint of what that work looks like. It's your labor prompted by love. Your continuing labor. And I love that word, that phrase there. Man, it is something you are pressing into. It's something that breaks a sweat. And by the way, isn't loving some people labor? There are some people where, hey, loving you is just a gift. Loving you is a blessing. And then there's others going, loving you is labor. It's like I'm giving labor, trying to love you. And Paul says, yeah, it's work. And that is a work of faith. That shows me a love for God, because Chris wouldn't love those people. Chris wouldn't labor for people like that, but Christ would. And this is that work of faith. You're laboring to love people and people that you'd rather not. And here's the beauty of this. It's endurance inspired by hope. And you're not going to stop. And you're going to keep on loving. We got our all-star team lined up this week just to give you chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4. You got Austin Payne tomorrow. It's going to be a ride, and it's going to be a blast. But until then, you've got one thought for today. Can I be convicted of my faith by what I do? Or is it what I say? Do I have work in faith of laboring and loving people? And it's ongoing simply because of how Christ loves me. There's a good thought. But even more than a thought, that's good homework. You know why? Because that's supposed to be our good work. See you tomorrow.